Hey Reddit, I've been thinking about sharing this for a while. It's something that's still on my mind, and honestly, I can't believe how bad things got. So, a bit about me. I'm Zach, 29 years old. I grew up in a small town, and let's just say, things were never easy. My family? Well, they're your typical group of chaotic, entitled people. But up until last year, they were just another set of characters I had to deal with on the holidays. Let's just say, I've had my share of weird family gatherings, but nothing quite like the Thanksgiving that changed everything. Before this all happened, I was your average guy. I worked a regular 9 to 5 job at a tech company, lived in a modest apartment, and kept to myself for the most part. Things changed, though. You see, a few months ago, I stumbled upon a massive opportunity at work. It was one of those once-in-a-lifetime situations where I had a chance to work on a project that ended up paying off in ways I didn't expect. Long story short, I ended up making a lot of money from it, like millions of dollars. I didn't tell anyone about it, at least not at first. I wanted to enjoy my success quietly, without people hounding me for handouts. But, well, that was before Thanksgiving. It all started innocently enough. My family invited me over for the usual turkey dinner. I didn't think much of it. I hadn't seen them in a while, so I figured it would be good to catch up. Plus, my aunt was always trying to outdo herself with her cooking, so I figured I could stomach the awkwardness for a good meal. I show up at my aunt's house, and already, the tension is thick. I can tell everyone's been gossiping about something, but I had no idea what it was. You know that feeling when you walk into a room and immediately sense that something's off? That was me. I sat down and tried to ignore it. As dinner progressed, it was all normal enough, except for the fact that people kept sneaking glances at me, and I couldn't help but notice the way some of my relatives kept whispering amongst themselves. Then, my cousin Sarah, who I hadn't spoken to in years, leaned over and casually asked, "So, Zach, I hear you've been doing pretty well for yourself lately, huh?" I froze. I didn't know how she'd found out. But before I could even respond, my uncle chimed in. "Oh yeah, we've heard about your big promotion. How's that working out for you? Must be nice to have money to throw around." I forced a smile and nodded, not wanting to get into the details. "It's good, you know. Things have been great at work." But of course, that was just the beginning. My aunt, who's always had a way of asking too many questions, leaned in and said, "So, how much money are we talking about here, Zach? You've been keeping it a secret for so long. I bet you could help us all out with a little extra." I wasn't sure how to react. It was as if all these people I hadn't really seen in months or years, had just assumed that my financial success meant I owed them something. At this point, I was still trying to stay calm. I just shrugged it off. "Nah, it's not like that. I'm just doing my job, nothing special." But the whispers didn't stop. My cousin, Sarah, suddenly stood up. "Well, come on, Zach. We're family, right? Surely you can share some of that wealth. I mean, everyone's been struggling lately. Some of us have bills to pay, you know." The whole table went quiet. Everyone's eyes were on me now. The subtle hints turned into full-on demands. "You could pay off my mortgage," my uncle said, as if it was no big deal. "I've been behind on payments for months now. Maybe you could help me out with that. I'm sure Zach could chip in for the kids' college tuition," my aunt added, her voice dripping with entitlement. I mean, it's the least he could do. I was stunned. My family had always been dysfunctional, but this was next-level entitlement. It was as if they all thought that just because I had money, I should be their personal bank. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why didn't you just shut it down, Zach? Trust me, I wanted to, but I didn't know how to react. I mean, these people were family. How could they just come out and say this stuff? It was surreal. I tried to brush it off, but it didn't work. Sarah, sensing that I wasn't giving her the reaction she wanted, leaned closer. "I mean, it's just a loan, right? You can pay it back when you can. It's not like we're asking for a handout or anything." That's when I snapped. I put my drink down, stood up, and looked around the table. I wasn't going to let them think they could just walk all over me. "Actually," I said, trying to keep my voice calm, "I have a better idea." Everyone went quiet. I could tell they weren't expecting that response. "What do you mean?" my uncle asked, raising an eyebrow. I smiled, leaning in just a little. "Well, how about instead of paying off your debts, I give you all something much more valuable. The opportunity to learn how to not end up in this situation again. I think it's time for you to figure things out on your own. No handouts. No quick fixes. Just hard work and responsibility like everyone else." My aunt gasped. Sarah looked at me like I was crazy. "Are you serious?" she asked, her voice dripping with disbelief. You can't be serious. We're family. You can't just leave us hanging like this. I didn't answer. I simply turned and walked out of the room. I could hear the argument starting up behind me, but I didn't care. They had crossed a line, and I wasn't about to let them take advantage of me. But this was just the beginning. I thought walking out would be the end of it, but I was wrong. My family wasn't going to let me off that easily. The next few days after Thanksgiving were a blur. I was getting bombarded with texts and calls, mostly from Sarah and my aunt. They weren't happy. In fact, they were furious. Sarah started with a text. What is your problem? You think you're better than us now? I thought you were family. You've changed, Zach. I can't believe you'd do this. Then came the guilt trip from my aunt. You're being so selfish. We've been there for you your whole life, and now you can't even help us when we're struggling? It's shameful. I didn't respond at first. I didn't want to get sucked back into their drama. But eventually, after a few days of this nonstop harassment, I figured it was time to call Sarah. I needed to set some boundaries, and if she wasn't going to respect them, I'd have to be more direct. Hey, Sarah, I said when she picked up the phone, trying to keep my tone neutral. Zach, finally, you pick up. You've been ignoring me for days. I'm done with your little game. You owe us. No, you owe me. She sounded almost unhinged. I didn't come to you for a handout. I came to you for help because I thought you cared. You think you can just walk away from all of us? Sarah, I interrupted, trying to stay calm. You don't get it. I don't owe anyone anything. Just because I'm doing well for myself doesn't mean I have to bail you all out of your mistakes. You don't get to guilt trip me into doing something I don't want to do. Her voice grew louder. You're just like them. You've changed, Zach. You've become some cold-hearted, selfish person. You think you're better than us now. Well, newsflash, you wouldn't have anything if it weren't for us. We helped raise you. We helped you get this far. I felt my patience start to wear thin. That's not true, Sarah. Yes, you were there when I was growing up, but that doesn't mean I owe you forever. It doesn't give you the right to come into my life and demand money. But we're family, she screamed. You can't just forget about us. I'll never forgive you for this. I let out a deep sigh, feeling the weight of the conversation. I'm not forgetting about you. I'm just saying no. I'm not your ATM, and I'm not going to let you guilt trip me into thinking I should be. There was a long pause on the other end, then a sharp intake of breath. Fine, Sarah finally spat, her voice dripping with venom. But don't think this is over. I'm going to make sure everyone knows what you really are. And with that, she hung up. I sat there for a few moments, feeling a mix of frustration and disbelief. What had just happened? I was trying to set some boundaries, and instead of respecting them, she was threatening me. As if things weren't already bad enough, a few hours later, my aunt called. She was far more diplomatic than Sarah, but just as persistent. Zach, sweetheart, I really think you've misunderstood the situation, she said, her voice saccharine sweet. We're all family, and we've always been there for you. It's just hard for us to understand why you'd shut us out now when we need you most. It's not about the money, darling. It's about us being together. You've always been so generous, so why are you being like this now? I knew where this was going, and I wasn't having it. Aunt Linda, I'm not a bank. If you want to talk about being together, we can, but I'm not giving anyone a cent. I'm sorry you can't see that. There was a brief silence on the other end before she spoke again. You're making a huge mistake. You'll see. We'll figure something out, but you'll regret this. Regret? The only thing I regretted was not standing up for myself sooner. I ended the call and put my phone down, hoping it would all blow over. But I knew deep down it wouldn't. Sarah had already made it clear this was far from over. The next few days were filled with more attempts at manipulation. Calls, texts, even a few passive-aggressive posts on social media. Sarah started sharing things about me with the rest of the family, and I could hear the whispers growing louder. They were painting me as the villain, the greedy, selfish cousin who had forgotten where he came from. But I wasn't going to give in. Not now. Not after everything I had worked for. I spent the next few weeks laying low, focusing on my work, and ignoring the endless family drama. I didn't even attend the next family gathering. The texts slowed down, but they never stopped entirely. And then came the final straw. One day, I got a call from my mom. She sounded frantic. Zach, where are you? Your aunt and Sarah are here, and they're furious. They're demanding you pay up. You need to talk to them. I froze. The situation had escalated to this point? They're threatening to tell everyone that you don't care about your family. My mom continued. They said they'll make your life miserable unless you give them what they want. That was it. I was done playing nice. I wasn't going to let these people tear me down anymore. I made a decision right then and there that would change everything. I smiled to myself and replied, "Don't worry, Mom. I actually have a better idea." The decision had been made. I knew it was time to stop letting my family dictate my life and get even for everything they had done. But I needed a plan. I couldn't just hand them the money and hope they'd leave me alone. No, this needed to be something bigger. Something that would force them to see that they couldn't walk all over me anymore. The next few days were intense. My mom had stopped calling, but I knew Sarah and Aunt Linda weren't going to give up. I could almost feel their pressure building, their sense of entitlement festering. I could hear Sarah's voice in my head. "You'll regret this, Zach. You'll see." But I didn't care. The more they pushed, the more determined I became. I wasn't going to let them win. The opportunity came when I received a text from Sarah inviting me to another family gathering. "You're not getting out of this one. We need to talk. You owe us an explanation. The family deserves to know what you're really about." I stared at the screen. I started getting angry. She was still playing the victim, acting as though I had done something wrong. I knew this was my chance to confront them, to make them realize I wasn't the person they thought I was. So I went. The gathering was at my aunt's house, a few miles outside the city. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I had a feeling it wouldn't be a peaceful conversation. As soon as I walked through the door, the tension was thick. Sarah and Aunt Linda were sitting at the kitchen table, their arms crossed, their faces twisted in anger. Well, well, Sarah sneered as she looked me up and down. "You decided to show up. Let's see if you've got the guts to say it to our faces." I took a deep breath and walked into the room. "I'm here, aren't I?" I said calmly, my voice steady but firm. "And I'm not leaving until we get this sorted out. So let's talk." Aunt Linda stood up slowly, her expression full of disbelief. "Zach, you don't understand. We've always been there for you. We raised you. You're acting like you're above us now. All we've asked for is a little help, and you won't even do that. You're turning your back on your family." I shook my head. "You're missing the point, Aunt Linda. I don't owe you anything. You weren't there for me the way you think you were. I don't owe anyone a dime just because I've worked hard to get where I am." Sarah stood up, her face red with fury. "You think we're all just a bunch of beggars? You think we don't deserve any help? You've changed, Zach. You're not the person I used to know. You used to care about us. Now you just think you're better than us." I could feel the heat rising in my chest. The frustration, the anger, the sense of betrayal. It was all bubbling to the surface. "You don't get it, Sarah. I didn't change. I just woke up. You and Aunt Linda are so used to me being your safety net that you think I owe you forever. But I don't. I'm not your ATM, and I'm not your charity case. You need to figure out how to stand on your own 2 feet instead of constantly trying to drag me down." Aunt Linda's face twisted with rage, her eyes flashing. "You ungrateful little brat. You wouldn't be where you are if it weren't for us. You wouldn't even be alive if we hadn't been there for you. And this is how you repay us." I took a step forward, my voice low and controlled. "You didn't do anything special. You were just family. You weren't my saviors, Aunt Linda. You helped raise me. Yes, but that doesn't mean I owe you the rest of my life. And Sarah, you need to get over the idea that you can just come to me whenever you're in trouble and expect me to fix it. I'm not your father, and I'm not your bank account." Sarah's face turned bright red. "You think we'll just sit here and take this? You think we'll let you walk away without consequences?" I took another deep breath. "You've made it clear you don't understand boundaries. You think you can walk all over me, but it's not going to happen anymore. You want to make me the villain? Fine. But know this, if you want my help, it's going to come with a price. I'll give you something, but you won't like it." Aunt Linda's eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" I smiled, my eyes locking onto hers. "You'll see soon enough." I could feel the tension rising in the room. Sarah and Aunt Linda were both waiting for me to make the next move, expecting me to cave or back down. But I wasn't going to do that. I had one more card to play, and I played it. I pulled out my phone and tapped a few buttons. A moment later, I handed it over to Aunt Linda. "Here, this is my proposal," I said coolly. She took the phone, glancing down at the screen. Her eyes flickered over the content, confusion slowly turning to realization, then anger. "What is this? A contract? You're going to—" "Yep," I interrupted, feeling a rush of satisfaction. "It's a contract. If you want money from me, you're going to have to work for it. I'm not giving you a handout anymore. You want to fix your problems? You can start by doing something productive for once. Sign the contract, and I'll consider it." But no more freebies. You'll work for it. Sarah's face twisted with disgust. You think we're going to work for you? You think we're your employees? I gave them a cold, satisfied look. No. I think you'll either sign the contract and start taking responsibility for your lives, or you'll keep crying about how I owe you everything. The choice is yours. There was a tense silence in the room. Aunt Linda stared at the screen in disbelief, her face pale. You can't be serious. I crossed my arms, the smile on my face growing wider. Oh, I'm dead serious. At that moment, the door opened, and my mom walked in. She looked between us, clearly confused by the tension. What's going on in here? Aunt Linda looked up at her, her voice shaking. Zach is threatening to cut us off completely if we don't sign this ridiculous contract. My mom glanced at me, her eyes filled with concern. Zach, what is this? I turned to her, my tone still calm but firm. I'm not letting them guilt trip me anymore, Mom. They want something from me. Fine, but they're going to work for it. If they can't respect my boundaries, then they don't get to keep playing the family card. My mom shook her head, her voice tinged with disappointment. You're taking this too far, Zach. This isn't how we do things. But I wasn't listening anymore. I was done being manipulated. Just as Aunt Linda started to open her mouth to argue, I cut her off. The contract's on the table. You can take it or leave it. But know this. If you choose to walk away, you'll never see a dime from me again. I watched their faces as the words sank in. The room was thick with tension, the air charged with unspoken threats. The drama had reached its boiling point, and I could see it in their eyes. They knew this was the moment that would define everything. Would they take the deal, or would they walk away and forever lose the chance to get anything from me again? And then, just as I was about to walk out the door, Sarah spoke up. I'll sign it, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I looked at her, a smirk tugging at my lips. You'll sign it, I repeated. But remember, this is only the beginning. The room was dead silent after Sarah spoke those words. The tension was palpable. Aunt Linda looked like she might explode, her face turning a shade of red I didn't even know was possible. Sarah, on the other hand, stood with her shoulders slumped, clearly not expecting me to call her bluff. But I wasn't backing down. I held out the phone with the contract in front of Sarah. Good. But you better read the whole thing. It's not just some formality. This is your chance to fix everything, but it comes at a cost. No more free rides. You want something from me? You'll work for it. Sarah snatched the phone from my hand, glaring at me. I could see the gears turning in her head. She wanted to fight it, to scream, to throw a tantrum. But she also wanted that money, and she wanted it bad. I'll sign it, she muttered. Aunt Linda, still fuming, finally broke her silence. You think this is funny, Zach? You think you can just walk in here, throw money around like it's nothing, and treat us like employees? She was practically trembling with rage now. We're family. We've always been there for you. And now you want to treat us like we're beneath you. I didn't flinch. You've always been there for me, huh? That's funny, because the only time I ever saw family from you was when you needed something. So, now, I'm making you work for it. There's no such thing as a free lunch. If you can't handle it, then don't sign the contract and keep living in your fantasy world where you think I owe you everything. Aunt Linda's eyes were wide with disbelief. For a second, I almost thought she might cry. But instead, she stormed toward the door. I don't need your money, Zach. I don't need your charity. You can keep your contract. I'm done here. She slammed the door behind her, leaving a heavy silence in the air. I glanced at Sarah, who had already started scrolling through the document, her brow furrowed. She was obviously mad, but I could tell she was starting to realize I wasn't bluffing. I'm not signing this, she finally said, shaking her head. I raised an eyebrow. Oh, you're not. She looked me dead in the eye. No, I'm not. You want to play hardball? Fine. But I'm not your puppet, Zach. You don't get to control me. I was done with this. Done with their manipulation, done with their threats. They thought they could walk all over me because I had money. Well, they were about to learn the hard way that this game wasn't going to go the way they expected. I stood up straight, walking toward the door. That's fine, Sarah. If you don't sign, then I guess that's it. You'll never see a dime from me again. And you can tell Aunt Linda the same thing. Your entitlement got you this far, but it won't get you any further. Sarah stood there, frozen. The room felt like it was spinning around me, but I didn't care. The emotional weight of the years of manipulation, guilt, and financial demands had finally lifted off my shoulders. I felt lighter, freer, more in control than I ever had before. I walked out the door, and as I did, I couldn't help but feel a rush of satisfaction. I had finally taken control. For years, I had been the one giving, the one compromising, the one constantly expected to bend to their whims. But that was over. I had drawn the line, and I wasn't going to let them cross it anymore. The next few weeks were tense. My mom tried to reach out, asking me to reconcile with Sarah and Aunt Linda, but I held firm. I wasn't going to back down. I wasn't going to give in. They would either come to me with respect, or they wouldn't come at all. And, in the end, they didn't come at all. It took months before I got another message from Sarah, but when I did, I could tell she had been humbled. The tone of the message was entirely different. "Zach," it said, "I know I messed up. I want to talk. I understand now what you were trying to do, and I'm ready to work with you, not against you. Can we meet?" I stared at the screen for a long time, my finger hovering over the reply button. Part of me wanted to just block her number, to walk away and leave them in their mess. But another part of me wanted to see if Sarah had really changed, if she was finally ready to take responsibility for her own life. I thought about it for a while before typing a simple reply, "Let's talk," but on my terms. A few weeks after Sarah's message, I met her at a coffee shop. It wasn't some grand gesture or emotional reunion, just a simple conversation where we laid everything out on the table. I wasn't going to make it easy for her, and she knew that. I wasn't interested in empty apologies or promises that she wouldn't keep. She admitted she had been wrong, that she had let the idea of my money cloud her judgment, and that it wasn't just me she'd been treating like this. She'd been pushing other people away too, all in the name of getting what she thought was owed to her. I could tell she was genuinely remorseful, but I wasn't going to rush into trusting her again. "I get it, Zach," she said, her voice soft but firm. "I was being entitled, and I'm sorry for everything. I want to earn your trust back, not just take from you." I took a deep breath. "It's going to take time, Sarah. I'm not going to give you a dime unless you prove you've changed. You have to do the work. It's the only way I'll even think about helping you." She nodded, and I could see she understood. There was no magic fix here, no quick resolution. We both need to rebuild what had been broken. It wasn't going to happen overnight. Aunt Linda didn't reach out after that, and I didn't care to hear from her. I wasn't about to fall into the trap again, where I was expected to fix everything just because I had the means. I learned my lesson the hard way. Months passed, and things slowly shifted. Sarah did come through on her end, working hard to prove she was serious about changing. She took on a job she'd never considered before, one that didn't rely on handouts or family connections. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a start. And slowly, bit by bit, she began to rebuild her life on her own. I'm not saying everything is perfect now. There are still moments of tension, still the occasional awkward silence when we're all together, but we've moved past the entitlement and manipulation. I've learned to set boundaries, and they've learned that I'm not someone they can take advantage of anymore. In the end, it wasn't about the money. It was about control. Taking back control over my own life, my own choices, and how I let others treat me. And maybe, just maybe, it helped Sarah realize that money isn't everything. Respect, honesty, and hard work? That's what matters.